today because our weeks have been tiring nonetheless. But we're so glad to be here with you today. So
we're going to start off. We're going to talk about the Syrian bombings by France and Russia. This week, France has dropped bombs on Syria and has Russia. The UK has mentioned that they are still on the fence whether or not they're going to be partaking in that. And also China has declared war on ISIS this week as well.
Wow.
Because believe it or not, in China there's a Muslim population there, and there's a group of extremists in China. And China has feared that those extremists have branched out into ISIS and joined forces with them at this point.
Interesting.
And China backs France, and I think there's a lot of conflicting opinions about it because innocent people are getting killed.
Because you can't identify Muslim terrorists, Muslim extremists, because like they have made it so that it's hard to discern because they dress up in normal Muslim attire, you know what I mean? Or like
attire that's atypical of the area.
Yeah, so
I think that it's really sad and it's unfortunate what's going on, but we have to remember, in war, there are casualties. That's just a factor of war. Innocent people die all the time.
Especially religious affiliated wars.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure most wars are caused by religion. I mean, think about it. Some of the worst wars this world has seen.
Or just allegiance in general, like the Civil War, like the Crusades, you know what I mean? Like just a strong allegiance to what you believe in. It's great to believe in something, and it's great to fight for what you believe in, but when it causes like innocent lives to be taken and to be affected negatively, like for the long run, like that's when you kind of need to reevaluate. I mean, we had a little bit of this discussion last week where we were saying like, how should the Muslim community deal with this? And I mean, like, as far as I know, I haven't necessarily been hearing anything from the Muslim community, which disappoints me because it's just like, this is happening to you guys. People are targeting you guys. Like, you guys should speak up for yourselves.
And there's a lot of talk now because in the United States, you know, Angela Merkel, who is from Germany, is the president or the chancellor of Germany, has said she's going to take in 800,000 refugees from Syria. The U.S., Obama says, as long as I'm president, Syrians are welcome. And a lot right now with a lot of like the presidential race that's going on, it's a big topic.
Right.
And of course, you know, the Republican side is saying, don't let them in. The Democratic side is saying, let them in. And there's a lot, you know, people are talking right now. And one thing I've noticed that's been brought up a lot is people will say, okay, well, you want to bring Syrians here, but we have so many homeless veterans. And unfortunately, it's true, but you know what? Who let them be homeless? Us.
Right.
You know?
I mean, we do have Veterans Day, but do we? I feel like we only appreciate the young, hot ones. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's sad because, I mean, there are a lot of veterans who, like, originally didn't even want to be in a war, you know what I mean? They just fought for their country because they were poor, they wanted access to education, they wanted access to housing. They thought it was their best option at the time. A lot of veterans speak out and they say, like, I don't like this country, I don't like what it's made me, but this was the only option that I had. And I mean, it take into account that too. I feel like I've heard a lot of people saying like World War III is coming. And I don't think that's a crazy observation to make with all of this uproar.
It's just a lot of civil unrest right now. Very sad. But moving on, it is revealed this week, Charlie Sheen, I think everybody knows the infamous Charlie Sheen went on the Today Show with Matt Lauer and gave an interview saying that he is HIV positive and has been for the last 4 years.
Wow.
It is not too shocking because there have been rumors of him being HIV positive going on for a while now. I mean, he lost a ton of weight, and that could be from that or just from his drug use. He says that he is treated by a doctor, and at this point, the virus is undetectable in his blood.
Wow.
And women still have unprotected sex with him.
I really don't know how you could do that, considering he's Charlie Sheen, but like to each his own, you know what I mean? Like whatever you want.
I think that Charlie Sheen, despite all of his infamous antics, could really use this opportunity to bring awareness to the disease because there are no, aside from Magic Johnson, there are no mainstream celebrities in Hollywood who have it or are open about having it.
Absolutely.
He could definitely, I think in the past couple of years, we've seen a giant change in the way people look at HIV. You know, modern technology has made it not a death sentence anymore.
Right.
And the stigma that it's a gay disease, that it's a disease for black people, that's a disease for drug users, it's gone because there are people, regular people out there, like Charlie Sheen, who have it now. And I hope that he uses his influence and his money to spread awareness to this disease, as well as talking about how you can prevent getting it.
I mean, in terms of like how I feel about HIV, I just think about Queen and I think about Freddie Mercury, and that just really depresses me because Bohemian Rhapsody is the best song to ever.
I was listening to that last night.
Ever exist in the entire world. It has been proclaimed that is the most like magnificent piece of like a composed piece of music to ever exist. And like, I really do hope that Charlie Sheen fights for like HIV advocacy, not necessarily advocacy, but like stands in solidarity with those who do have HIV and also uses his fame as a platform to get it more well known, because this is stuff that still happens to people. Like literally, just like we just learned about this recently, and also it continues to be like a struggle in the gay community. I actually watched a movie called The Normal Heart, and there's also How to Survive a Plague, which was like sort of inspired. The Normal Heart was inspired by How to Survive a Plague. How to Survive a Plague is like the documentary version, and how a Normal Heart is like the playwright of the actual story of how they fought for like AIDS, like pharmaceuticals, like how they fought pharmaceuticals to administer AIDS medication to the gay community so that they wouldn't keep dying, or like preventative like medication and stuff like that, because obviously AIDS is not curable, and HIV is not curable. But they're very interesting documentaries if you want to learn a little bit about like the whole fight in HIV and AIDS, because it does still happen to people, and I feel like now like people look at like AIDS and HIV like it's the butt of a joke, and
it's not a joke.
It isn't, you know what I mean? And I hope that Charlie Sheen will use this happenstance as a means to turn it back into something that should be serious and regarded as something that can be combated and prevented, I suppose.
Well said.
Thank you.
Also this week, Jared Fogle, the former Subway spokesman, was sentenced to 15 years with a minimum of 13 in federal prison for distribution and possession of child pornography and having sex with minors. Originally, it comes as a shock because originally he was looking at anywhere from 5 to 12 years, but the judge gave him 15, which is more than the recommended sentencing.
Right.
And I think part of the reason why is because throughout this whole case, Jared Fogle has not come out and take responsibility for it. He has brought in tons of doctors and experts to come in and say, oh, well, he was like this because he was an alcoholic. He was like this because he has a sex problem. He was like this because when he lost all that weight from Subway, he had to get over compulsive eating, and that turned into this. And I think instead of making excuses, he should have just owned up to what he did and admit that he had an issue, and
it would have been less for him in the long run.
It would have been way less for him. And in addition to that, he has to pay $1.7 in restitution to the victims, $50,000 in other fines, and an additional $75,000, I think, in court fees.
I mean, and also he has to pay paying
his ex-wife. His ex-wife filed for divorce as soon as the news broke. She had to pay him $7 million.
So around, I mean, aside from those, the fees that he has to pay for his divorce, like he's looking at around $2 million just for the whole court distribution. There's nothing really I can comment other than this is
There's not too much to say. He does not deserve a lot of words. Thank God someone like him, who used his power and his influence to create a charity organization where he preyed upon children and exploited them for his own sick pleasure, is no longer going to be on the streets. And he doesn't deserve any of the money, the power, or the recognition he gets now. And I hope that once he is put into custody, this is the last we hear of him, because he does not deserve any more attention.
No. Yeah.
And that's how I feel.
So it's good that Subway cut all ties with him.
How much you want to bet Subway's wishing they just had like a talking sandwich as their mascot now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just trying to move on from it. I don't really see that many ads, because I feel like now, like when you think Subway, you're almost like synonymous with Jared Fogle.
Yeah, now there's all those foot-long jokes and Jared jokes. Oh, God.
Taste.
On to more pleasant news. Thanksgiving is this week.
hooray, food, thanks.
My favorite holiday, personally. I love Thanksgiving. I don't know how you, I love it.
I mean, I like Thanksgiving. I feel like Thanksgiving kind of is like a proponent for people to have fights with their family.
Oh my God, and argue about politics.
Yeah, politics and religion.
How many fights do you think are going to go on about the presidential nominees this Thanksgiving? I can already
probably
already
like a
hear
Republican dad and then his liberal Democrat daughter are going to get into a spat.
The college liberal?
Yeah. So,
Oh,
I mean,
man.
I love Thanksgiving, and Snoop Dogg actually is making strides to better his community for this Thanksgiving by handing out 1,500
turkeys to underprivileged families in LA.
Which I think is beautiful because, I mean, when we think of LA, we think of glitz, we think of glamour, we think of Hollywood, but there are a lot of people who are like suffering in that area.
A lot of poor people in the area.
Yeah, like when you have like a densely rich area, you also have to remember that there is like a 360 and there is a densely poor area, which you can definitely see by the fact that like there are $1 million homes and everything like that over there. So he's doing a really great thing. Shout out to Snoop Lion / Snoop Dogg.
Now the question I want to ask is Thanksgiving politically correct? Because
in what sense? Like, what does that mean?
In the sense that, you know, growing up in school, at least in elementary school, we put on all these fucking plays that, you know, the settlers came here from England to escape religious persecution, and the Native Americans welcomed them with open arms, and they had dinner, and they sat down. But none of that was true. The settlers came over here and committed atrocities and essentially are responsible for the genocide of an entire race of people.
Right.
We have Columbus Day, which celebrates Christopher Columbus,
genocide.
Another, you know, proponent of genocide. We have Thanksgiving. I don't know. I think that over time, Thanksgiving has evolved into more of like a family holiday and stuff, where, you know, families put aside differences and they come together and they talk about what they're thankful for. But we can't forget where all of this came from.
I mean, it initially was breeded upon conflict, so it's not too far that people kind of like come together and are like, wow, I'm so thankful for the fact that I don't have conflict in my life. Or people come together and it continues to breed conflict because there are unfinished resolutions. And I mean, like, in terms of Thanksgiving, like, I think that it's beautiful in terms of like what it has become, but that's obviously whitewashing. You know what I mean? Like, we obviously can't forget the fact that like people were massacred and like white people took it upon themselves to claim a land that didn't belong to them, that Native Americans didn't believe ever belonged to anyone.
Diseases that we never even had in this country.
Yeah, and I mean, and took more than they could give. And I mean, like, but I think that what it is represented as, like, by Hallmark and by Michael's craft stores and all of that, like, is a beautiful thing, and it shouldn't be disregarded. But like the history of this holiday and the history of our the United States should be taken into consideration as well.